Right, it's 11 o'clock, we'll make a start. I have to start by reading this out. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is being videoed. Members of the public are entitled to record the proceedings and are requested to give prior notice so that any additional measures that may assist can be put into place. Any member of the public who has any concerns should raise them now. Right, so item 1, apologies for absence. Ms. David Minery and Lee Chapman. Yeah. Right, thank you. Disclosable pecuniary interests? No, nobody seems to be saying that. Minutes, the minutes of, I think there's 2 meetings. Yeah, there's 27th February and 6th of March are attached. Any comments or everyone happy? Right, nobody seems to be objecting. Can I just see all those in favour so we're clear? Right, thank you. Item 4, public question time. Now there were some public questions. Yeah, we keep them together.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't say both dates.
Sorry.
Right, public questions. So the first one, which one have you got first on the list?
Question for Mr. Green.
Mr. Green. Do you want to come forward?
Thank you.
Yeah, you look like you're in action.
Thank you. The question is about agenda item 12 on the Shropshire local plan. There are 6 brief points leading to the question, and I will just give the gist of the full text that should be in front of you. The first point is about climate change and growth. Shropshire Council needs to make a step change in its approach to climate change issues, which will only be exacerbated by the further growth currently planned. School children around the world are holding governments to account. Even IPPR, the very firm behind the Council's economic growth strategy, have just published a report whose headline is that the historical disregard of environmental considerations in most areas of policy has been a catastrophic mistake. The Council's economic growth strategy seeks more growth than the underlying figures support. It has never been subject to any sustainability appraisal. Its growth plans should be reined in. The second point queries what is strategic about the 3 sites. In reality, they are just 3 large, extra, promoted sites that are only now being tacked on at the 4th stage of the local plan review. If they have to go ahead, their numbers should be counted as part of the existing targets. The third point is about the Green Belt. Green Belt boundaries should only be altered where exceptional circumstances are fully evidenced and justified. There is no such evidence yet, so the Council is jumping the gun by even considering the M54 Junction 3 proposals slapping the Green Belt. The fourth point is about in-migration to Shropshire. The proposed plans might mean another 76,000 people moving into the county, which is 4 times, yes, 4 times the numbers currently projected. How is that going to help existing residents? The fifth point is about openness. It does look as though discussions have been going on which have not been made public, which makes it look as though something may already have been decided on elsewhere without consultation with the people most affected. And the sixth point is about the Black Country evidence. The Black Country figures are being updated, and the Council should not be contemplating the release of Greenbelt land to help them, not us, until the new figures are out. So our question is, what is this latest evidence of Black Country unmet need? Where is it published, and in view of the 6 points we have made, should Shropshire Council be courting the Black Country to take any of its unmet need when the figures have yet to be tested? And should it be courting developers rather than looking to what is needed by Shropshire's existing residents? We look forward to hearing the debate of these matters under agenda item 12. Thank you.
And I'm going to ask Councillor Robert Macy to respond.
Okay, so my response is going to be into the actual question. I know you raised the 6 points in the preamble to the question, the actual question that we had. And in terms of that and the evidence of the Black Country need and figures, we've made references in the report to the unmet development need from the Black Country, and they're taken directly from a response to the recent consultation from the Association of Black Country Authorities, the ABCA, a copy of which will be supplied to the CPRE. The Black Country authorities are assembling evidence and support their review of their existing core strategy. This includes a range of technical housing evidence and an urban capacity study, all of which are publicly available on their web pages. Shropshire Council, we're not courting the Black Country, as it's been referred to. In fact, the Black Country boroughs wrote to all their neighbouring authorities, including Shropshire Council, in July of last year.
Shropshire Council is not a neighbouring authority.
Asking them to consider whether they'd be able and willing to accommodate any unmet development needs arising from the Black Country. A copy of this letter will be supplied to you, to the CPRE. And as we've referred to in 5.8 of today's report, National Planning Policy Guidance requires Shropshire Council to consider whether it is practical to help address any unmet need from the areas. The other issue I would take point is that you're referring to that we're courting developers with this. All three of the sites have been considered and promoted by the respective landowners as a normal part of the local plan review process. National Planning Policy requires Shropshire Council as part of its local plan to engage with developers to explore how best to meet Shropshire's development needs for an extended period. Strategic sites have been proposed to have the potential, subject to further investigation, to contribute positively to this objective. The only other phrase which I take issue with is sort of saying that we're jumping the gun. This paper today is very much putting out there in the open, these are what we received, and asking Cabinet to consider the position we're at now prior to any sorts of decisions or consultation taking place. So,
right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, we move on. So item 5 is member question time. And the first on the list is a question from Councillor David Basman.
Thanks, Chair. My question is about the path between the Abbey Foregate and Platform 3 of the railway station. Adopted by Shropshire Council, the Shrewsbury Big Town Plan aims to reduce traffic through the town. Reopening the path between Abbey Foregate and Platform 3 of the station, the old Gay Meadow footpath, is one policy the plan backs to achieve this. Past attempts have failed because this can only be achieved by cooperation between Network Rail, Transport for Wales, Shrewsbury Town Council and Sevenside Housing, who now manage the old Meadow housing development. Now that a new train operator has taken over the rail franchise and a new Department for Transport Community Rail Development Strategy, which was launched in November 2018, places a new emphasis on station accessibility for pedestrians and cyclists, all parties have indicated that they are ready to discuss opening the path from Abbey Foregate to Platform 3. As the Planning and Transport Authority, Shropshire Council should be the convener of the meeting and be prepared to lead the initiative. Could the lead member for Transport and Highways ensure that the meeting is convened as soon as possible and that appropriate local members are involved in all these discussions?
Right, I'm going to ask Councillor Steve Davenport to respond.
David, I've got a long-winded answer for you, which I'm going to give you, but I totally agree with you, and I'll make it my business to lead on this. And I was on Platform 3 yesterday, coming back from Birmingham. I see the problems, and I do on a regular basis, but I'm happy to bring all the partners together to try and make this happen.
And just so that the press, we will let you have all these bits of paper, so with all the answers. Right, moving on. Question 2, Councillor Roger Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. Will the answers to these questions be supplied to all those present? because I've yet to receive answers to the questions that were asked at the last cabinet report, the last but one cabinet meeting. Will they be circulated at some time?
I wasn't aware they hadn't been, but can we make sure that happens?
Okay, but my question, Chairman, is it any concerns Interserve, and how or will Shropshire Council be affected by last Friday's news and the weekend regarding Interserve? Is there any information or help that Shropshire Council can give to any Shropshire businesses that will or may be affected by this news? Further, will the Cabinet be reviewing how future work is carried out and start to use internal resources in managing this work, rather than continuing to outsource it to companies who are controlled by foreign investors?
And I'm going to ask Councillor Steve Charmley to respond.
Thank you, Leader. The Council's got no business arrangements with Interserve in this or in recent previous years. Hence, there appears to be no direct consequential issues for the Council. Obviously, there may be local supply chain issues and residents of the county who may be personally affected, of which at least at present we have no direct information. So in summary, it's probably a little bit early to tell or make a call on this, but we are obviously monitoring the situation closely.
Right, Councillor Kevin Turley is the next question.
Members will see my question. The question refers to Chelmarron and the proposed planned works for transitional flat units to be converted in a building that we already exist. It's something I've been very passionate about at the top from the start, sitting on the task and finish group. But my key question is, from our own property services team, the cost implications per square metre for the works and increases from Q1 2017 to Q1 2019. Put the figures from my personal perspective at almost double sort of figures I've been quoting for sort of build work and in comparison to sort of retail sort of properties. I know you're not comparing like to like, but what I'm looking for the Cabinet to do is look at our building back costs, especially at a time where we're cutting services across the board. Place closer scrutiny on when we're going out to tenders and works, that we're actually looking at the cost implications of works we're having done for us. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Charmley.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, and yeah, we had a chat before, Kevin. I agree that the figures here don't tally with what normality would prevail. The answer I've got provided is figures are provided utilising industry standard guidelines, comparative costs, best practice for construction projects. Market increase in costs are an estimate based upon raw material costs. We are in the process of updating the framework for building category with the introduction of the dynamic purchasing system. This potential project has not been tendered, this potential project has not been tendered and can at any stage be value engineered. However, the clear scope of works and design criteria are crucial for PSG to provide a more robust pricing structure. However, on the back of that, I think there is another piece of work we need to do to get best value out of all these contracts, and I think we do need to look at it, and I think in agreement with the leader we'll bring you into that system so you can look at this particular case in more depth.
No, we do appreciate that.
And I've already spoken to the Chief Executive, who's agreed that we do need to have a proper investigation into how all this works, because some of the costs we end up with for building work does seem higher than out in the real world, shall we say. And I'm aware of that, and we are going to have a proper investigation, not just in this, but the general way we do tendering for building works.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Right, moving along. Item 6, scrutiny items. I don't think there are any items. None. Right, so item 7, North Midlands Adoption and Permanency Partnership. Councillor Nick Bardsley.
Thank you, Leader. May I ask Councillor Ed Potter to introduce this item? Yeah. He's done a lot of work on it.
Thank you very much. This is a positive move for Shropshire Council should it be approved through Cabinet today. It will result in improved work for looked after children in the care of the local authority. This work demonstrates our commitment to be creative and to do things differently. The Department for Education also thinks so too. They provided significant funding to allow this initiative to happen. The Department for Education requires us to be part of a regional adoption agency, but this is far more ambitious, looking beyond adoption and looking at permanency arrangements more generally for children who need to be permanently in care. They will benefit from knowing very early on what their long-term care arrangements will be. Shropshire has looked in the past at being part of a regional adoption agency previously, but determined that those arrangements did not work for Shropshire. This arrangement, however, is different, and it is not about creating a new legal entity. This is much more about developing a partnership approach, benefiting from working collaboratively whilst retaining local independence. There's still a lot of work to do, and the outline business case sets out the stages of development. Initially, this is about improvements rather than financial savings, but there is an expectation that in the medium term it will secure financial savings, with the financial modelling still to be done in the next few months. As I said, it's a positive move, it's good for Shropshire, it suits Shropshire's needs. We have a lot more control through this model, through this arrangement, and I hope Cabinet will support it, and I'm sure if there's anything the Director of Children's Services would like to add, but I think that's where we are.
So there are some recommendations on page 8, which I think are pretty clear and straightforward. If we agree the recommendations, will you at some time be coming back, I'm looking at the Director really, with a conclusion where this goes, and this isn't the final decision, this is just setting the ball in motion, and then the full report will come back at some stage in the future.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. Right. So I'm assuming Councillor Nick Bardsley will be proposing this.
I am, Chair.
Yeah. I'm quite happy to second it. So it's open to comment. No. Everyone seems happy. Can I see those in favour then? Please show. Right. That's clear, carried. Thank you all very much. Back to the agenda. Proposed taxi carriage and private hire licensing. I'm going to ask Councillor Willem Butler to introduce this.
Thank you, Peter. I'm pleasure in bringing forward this policy to take effect from the 1st of April. Just a few points to raise. First of all, I would like to thank the Strategic Licensing Committee who've overseen this review over the last 18 months. A lot of work has been undertaken. A few key messages. We have listened, we have changed the outcomes, we've changed the dates from listening to the industry. I'd also just like to clarify on safeguarding and the holistic approach we're taking as part of this policy of the Council's procedure in safeguarding in respect of taxis in section 3.3. And it needs to send a clear message, because outside of Shropshire, and I include Telford Reef in that, we will now have the highest standards for our taxis compared to neighbouring authorities. And there is a key message there, and I thank the industry for coming up to the level with that. And I would urge the residents in Shropshire, whether they are being collected from hospitals or they're having a taxi on the way home late at night on a Saturday, that if they get into a taxi that's licensed by Shropshire, they will have the best quality taxis, the best quality drivers that we can possibly get. And I would urge them to keep the Shropshire pound in Shropshire and support the local industry. And with that, Chair, I move the recommendation 2.1. Thank you.
And the recommendation's on page 38. Right. It's all right, I'm looking round, nobody seems to be indicating. I'm quite happy to second it, so it's around. No, nobody's saying anything. Can I see all those in favour then, please show. Right, that's agreed. Moving along. Item 9, proposed closure of Shropshire Council Bringbank sites. I'm asked Councillor Leslie Picton to introduce this.
Thank you, Leader. This report came before Cabinet last year and has since been out for consultation. The recommendation on page 287 is to remove the Bringbank facilities and to remove the budget associated with this scheme. Now, whilst the removal of the Bring Bank scheme does bring about a financial saving, in my personal opinion and that of officers, this service does not give value for money, nor is it effective. The Bring Bank service currently costs us £237,000 per annum, and 89% of the material picked up from the Bring Banks in 2017-18 could have actually been collected more efficiently by the curbside service. A further 8% was textiles, which are also collected by charities and commercial organisations, either directly from households or at charity and commercial Bring Banks and charity shops. The amount of materials collected via the Bring Bank services has reduced year on year. Perhaps this should be of no surprise when we are actually effectively providing the same service twice. The materials collected from these Bring Banks, despite clear signage and educational campaigns, is often contaminated with other waste and can therefore not be recycled. In the more urban areas, a significant proportion of the materials that is placed in the Bring Banks is actually of a commercial nature. Now, Shropshire Council has no reason to provide a service for these traders, and they have a legal obligation to take out contracts with registered waste providers to remove and process their commercial waste. Another issue is the areas around the Bring Bank sites is often subject to fly tipping. All kinds of materials are left alongside the bins, which results in other collections being diverted to remove it. And I know there is a little bit of a feeling that all the time we continue to collect the fly tipping that is placed around these Bring Banks, we will actually increase the amount of fly tipping that is there because people know we're taking it away. In my own parish, we asked that the Bring Banks were removed 2 years ago because of the fly tipping issue and of the contamination issue, and believe you me, you don't want to know what was put in some of the Bring Banks. But I should add, there's been no increase in fly tipping. In our attempts to make savings to balance the council's budget, it makes sense for us to focus on services which can be delivered more efficiently in a different way. We are already delivering this service at the curbside to every resident in Shropshire. These Bring Banks are inefficient and costly. I move the recommendation.
Okay, I'm happy to second it, so it's off the debate. I've got Councillor Alan Mosley first, then Councillor Simon Harris.
Did you not see me?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I put my
Sorry, yeah, Councillor Picton mentioned the consultation that took place around this, and you'll see from the report that 80% did not agree that that this service should be removed. But clearly, as we've been wont to point out on numerous occasions, consultation counts for little in this authority at the moment in terms of what the public want and what the council provides. The usage is listed in paragraph 5.2, and again, notwithstanding what Councillor Picton says, the decline has been very slow and is not particularly significant. If you compare 2013-14 with 2017-18, there's only been a slight decline, and you'll also see in other tables that some 5.8% of our recycling materials comes from these services. So it's not just something that is not necessary and is not valued by the public and is not used, nor is it something that doesn't lead us to achieve some of our recycling and other targets. It is, of course, further diminution in the services provided to residents and further evidence of the problems being caused by cuts in expenditure. However, it seems to that it will go ahead, and in a sense, at this stage, I'm making a plea that given the very high levels of fly tipping that exist already, and given that this will inevitably lead to even higher levels of fly tipping, I would ask that you reduce the financial targets of this and move some of those proposed savings into proper surveillance of fly tipping and also proper enforcement against fly tipping. How many, I've just asked in passing, how many prosecutions or actions have been taken against the perpetrators of fly tipping in the last year? and again make this plea that we should be involved in greater control of fly tipping and take action against those who are responsible for it as and when is required in a significant manner, rather than just giving lip service to it.
Councillor Simon Harris next.
Thank you, Leader. Although I'm going to talk about Broseley, I'm thinking that maybe every small town or big town in Shropshire is going to be on this. One of the issues you have with closing the Bringbank sites down is wanting people to recycle more on the curbside, which is fine. People of Broseley are really keen on this. The issue we have is having containers at the houses to do it. Now, I've brought this to council before. The black containers and the blue containers are not big enough. You're wanting people to recycle more, you've got to change the bins. They are not good enough, it's not acceptable, they are not fit for purpose.
Can I just stop you there? Because sometimes, like you say, I fill the box up, I then put another box.
Where do you get the other boxes from? And how many more boxes do you want these people to have?
But the reality is that Veolia will collect the extra boxes and replace it.
And of course you put it in the box and the wind blows and it's all over the road. No. Let's change, let's do this properly. If we're going to close things down, let's get these people the right size bins for what they require.
Okay, right, we take on board what you're saying.
Thank you.
Right, we move on. I'll do Pauline D next, then Roger, and then Joyce Barrow.
Right, thank you, Leader. I'm really very much... one question I'd like to ask is, how much does it cost for the removal of the fly tipping in the rural areas? Because we've got an awful lot of it. And it seems to be, particularly since there's been this rumour of the banks, the Bringbanks closing down. The charity shops are having an increase of clothing, etc., being brought, and one of our shops was reluctant to take any more because they've got so much clothing. They did put an embargo on receiving any more. The people who live in flats, particularly in Wem, where we spent an awful lot of money having flats put in above all the shops. They don't have the space for recycling the boxes, so a lot of them are using these Bringbanks. And another thing, I mean, the market towns, particularly the small ones, seem to be suffering because we've had the increase in the charges for car parking, and you know, people are just flying in and out using the 15 minutes, and they're going Frisbee Port, they bring stuff in to use the Bringbanks, particularly coming in from the rural areas, because we depend very much so on having our hinterland residents coming in and using, then they will use the shops. And it is, we used to have, when this council first started in 2009, we used to have a refuse lorry every 6 weeks that used to go onto the Edinburgh car park, and that was every town in North Shropshire did have one of these refuse lorries, and the scrutiny then decided that they didn't need it, and then since that there has been an awful lot of fly tipping around, but it was really good because the settees and televisions, all sorts used to go into it. So I made great objections, as did residents at the time about that. And the fly tipping has increased across my division, particularly in Wixall, which is part of my area. And I really am very concerned because I've had so much contact from residents from the whole division. That's Wem Rural. I mean, Wem Rural Parish Council have, they've already made their objections very clear because they are concerned about more fly tipping, that they can't get it into the town. And I did suggest to one of the operatives when they were there, perhaps they should bring CCTV and put it up down again, just for people to be caught that are doing this fly tipping, the extra to the bin. So I really am very, very concerned as to what will happen around Wem. I mean, we've always had fly tipping, it just goes on and on. People just don't seem to have the regard for their surroundings, which is very sad. But I'm it obviously the members will go ahead, the cabinet will disregard the what the rest of us have said. But I really do feel that this is something, this is a backward step, and we do need to try and keep our countryside free. Particularly, we're helping with the, you know, we've got animals trapped in all sorts of things that people dump, and I'm really trying to look out for our wildlife and the not so wildlife in the town centre as well. So, you know, I really would hope that you would perhaps reconsider and keep an eye on it. You know, that if there's going to be, if you're going to, which I presume you will, you are going to pass this, that you will keep a very close eye on the fly tipping, because I know I will.
Yeah, no, it will be monitored. Councillor Roger Evans.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Are bring banks wanted? That's the basic question. Yes, they are. 2,500 tonnes are still collected from the bringbacks. Is there a fly tipping problem? 32 out of 120 are. The majority are not, but that's being used as an excuse for taking them out. And as Councillor D remarked, we have cameras. If it is a problem, and it's a reoccurring problem, we can put a camera up there and catch them. I don't agree with fly tipping. You won't agree, I know, because we've had this conversation before. But it is a tax on rural areas. People are going to have to drive 10 and 20 miles to go to a to go to the recycling centres, Craven Arms or Shrewsbury or something like that, not locally, to be able to do it. But 6 sites visited and monitored for a total of 18 hours. Does that really reflect the use that those sites are doing? I would have thought that isn't. The consultation to me is flawed. And lastly, Chairman, I note that we will not be expecting to attain the full cost saving in this next financial year. Does that mean that the 1.5 million that this council agreed, I didn't, but this council agreed in saving in this area will no longer be attained? So we're already estimating that there will be an overspend in this area.
Right. Cabinet, any comments? Oh, sorry, I forgot Councillor Joyce Barrow. Yes. Sorry, Joyce.
It's okay. Invisible over there. Firstly, I wasn't going to speak on this, but having listened to what everyone just said. Oh, sorry, I thought it was on.
Yeah, it's going down.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't going to speak on this, but having heard everything that everyone has said, I think I need to respond in some way because I was the portfolio holder at the beginning of this process. I strongly suspect the 80% that responded to this and have objected are business people in the towns. I know that a town councillor in Oswestry reported to me that on a Sunday morning, if you go to Oswestry, St Oswald's site, you can see all the pub landlords sticking their bottles in the bin. So I think there's also business opportunity in that, but I won't go into that right now. I actually stood at Oswald Road, and may I take my hat off to the officers that went out around all these bringbacks to see what was going on there. Whilst I stood there, 2 cars pulled up within the hour, and I have to say they had a conversation. They saw the clipboard and realised something was going on. So they turned around and went straight back out again. That proves the point. The mess on the floor attracts vermin. The things were mixed up. You would not believe around these bins. I did actually ask originally, could we have photographs, and I know they exist. It is disgusting how some of these sites look. I mean, even normal people, members of the public, will say it's not good. I rambled on a bit because I wasn't going to talk, but a Tetra Pak down was full of old coat hangers. The poor guys sorted out had to take away the coat hangers from the Tetra Paks. Everything is used on these sites. There are in town other sites that they can take them to. I take Oswestry in particular because I know Oswestry really well. Supermarkets have sites that you can take them to. And I do know that officers, as I'm sure Leslie will tell you, are open to discussing with people who do have an issue and cannot put boxes in their flats officers are open to find a solution to their problems. So I actually strongly support this. I think it is money that we should be using better. It is not a statutory service, and on that I'll shut up and go away. Okay, thank you.
Right, Councillor Leslie.
Yeah, hang on a minute.
If I could just come back on a few other points. Please forgive me, Councillor Mosley, being relatively new to the portfolio, I will get an answer regarding wastewater regulations to you, because I don't have that information to hand. I think that the whole issue around fly tipping is an interesting one, because when we find fly tipping, and certainly in the rural areas, the fly tipping isn't plastic bottles, it's not glass bottles, it's not cans, most of it is trade waste. That, closing these bring banks won't make any difference to that, which is the major blight, I believe, of fly tipping. And I don't disagree that we need to make fly tipping more unpalatable, and the only way we can do that is to have more prosecutions. I do want to pick up on another couple of points. Where we say there is fly tipping at 37 out of the 120, that is significant fly tipping, Councillor Evans. Pretty much all of the sites suffer from fly tipping. People just take stuff and just dump it. They literally just leave it. I also don't really understand the comment about it being a rural issue, because why would you drive to a bring bank with your recycling when you have a curbside collection right outside your door? I don't get that bit. And as for the 1.5 million saving, I'm not sure, but perhaps wherever he is, perhaps Steve Brown will be able to inform me about that. I think there's lots of misinformation going around about fly tipping being the biggest complaint within the consultation. I will point out, however, that at least 50 of the people who responded to that consultation, and I might have got that number slightly wrong, it might be on the higher side, wanted the bring banks to stay, absolutely wanted them to stay, never having used them. Why would you comment on something you never use? Anyway, I'll go back on the recommendation, Leader.
Right, thank you. Councillor Pauline.
Yeah, I just answering Councillor Barrow about saying supermarkets have got their bring banks. Yeah, they have in where? It's by it's the councils. We only have one supermarket, and it is by the co-op. So that's one reason. You know, we don't have anything else because it is on the Shropshire Council's car park. And I wasn't asked by any member, a trade person, business person. It was all members of the public and the parish councils that asked me to speak. Nobody was from the trade. I have stopped people who were bringing bottles in from a pub and told them you're not allowed to do this, and that you know you've got to make your own arrangements, and they took their bottles away.
Councillor Steve Chalmers.
Thank you, Leader. Just to help inform the debate, having previously had the portfolio, so try and help Leslie out a little. I think the curbside recycling in Shropshire is something we should be proud of. In the performance report last month, I reported that curbside recycling was now at 53.7%, which is an all-time high, and that's 10% above the national average. Going on to the fly tipping, I think a lot of confusion there, because going back to the rationalisation of the recycling centres, especially in South Shropshire a couple of years ago, which I brought through Cabinet, there was a huge fear about fly tipping on the back of that, none of which materialised. I think you have to look at fly tipping in isolation, but put it into the package of the whole, if that makes sense, because it is a bespoke problem. And just on the tonnage collected from these bring banks, which Roger referred to, it's all very well mentioning the tonnage collected, but due to the mix of recyclates going in there and the contamination, the majority of that we can't recycle anyway, so it's kind of an irrelevant figure. We need to keep driving this recycling up, and it's something we're incredibly good at in Shropshire, and I think this is a positive way forward to actually increase recycling rather than being detrimental to it.
Right. Any further comments? Oh, sorry, Councillor Roger Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't mix recycling with the 2,500 tonnes. I recognise that some of it is contaminated, and that was the reason why this authority stop taking the lorries around the estates because of the cross-contamination and the paintings that were going into. But we seem to be pulling back and pulling back. There's a local authority just a few miles from here who offer free bulk collection to all its over 65s. And they offer various other things. This authority seems to be pulling back and pulling back, removing every service that it offers to people. And the reason I quoted the 2,500 is how valued they are. If there is a fly tipping problem, let's take action and stop it. If businesses are using these places, let's take action and stop it, rather than say, oh, because they're doing it, we're going to remove this facility from every resident who actually wants to use it. Thank you, Chairman.
I think if we're not careful, we're going to get confused in the debate about fly tipping and bringbacks. A lot of fly tipping that takes place now is furniture, is big items, which you wouldn't take to a bringbank anyway, and there is a degree of commercial stuff. People ripping out kitchens, and rather than going to recycling centres, just dumping them in the first place they can find, things like that. I don't think this decision will affect that. That's something that happens anyway, and we do prosecute wherever we can. I don't know the figures, and we'll try and find out the figures of how many people we prosecute, but we certainly need to keep on the case. But I really don't think this decision will make a huge difference to the actual fly tipping that goes on. What frustrates me more in the rural areas isn't so much fly tipping, it's rubbish on roads where people just are driving along and stick, you know, their takeaway thing goes straight out the window and ends up in a hedge and stays there for 12 months or you know, until when we get round doing our checks. And we do spend an awful lot of money doing it, but there's a lot of roads in Shropshire, and it's a huge amount, and I think that's the bigger problem actually in the county, is the people who just throw their rubbish out the car window and ends up, you know, on the highway, and that. So I think that's the issue we need to start tackling. I really don't think changing the way we deal with bringbanks will make much difference to that. So right, so it's moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on, item 10, Market Drayton Neighbourhood Plan. Robert Macy.
Thank you, David. The report you've got in front of you today is in relation to the Market Drayton Neighbourhood Development Plan. It's before you today because the conclusion of the examiner's report was that the plan should not proceed to referendum because it doesn't meet the nationally prescribed set of basic conditions. The plan itself was prepared by the Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group, with Market Drayton Town Council acting as the local qualifying body. And the work actually began in 2014. They submitted the draft version of the plan to us in 2018, and we undertook as a council further statutory consultation, and we appointed an independent person to conduct the examination into the plan. It's important for Cabinet to note, whilst the examiner's report is not binding on the authority, there is a significant risk to the authority should it decide to go against the examiner's very clear conclusions on this matter. And you'll see from the recommendations that we are saying that on that basis we can't go forward with it, referendum. But whilst it's a disappointing outcome, you'll see from the report, we do recognise the amount of work that has gone into this. We are very much seeing all of these neighbourhood plans coming forward, and we do support the aspiration that communities want to take more control in planning. We need to be assured that they're meeting the tests that have been set. There's two recommendations within the report. The second one very much reflects that whilst we can't take this forward referendum at this stage, we are looking at the local plan review as a way that some of the aspirations that they've outlined could be taken forward, so we can actually see some progress on those, and that work has informed that. So during the recent consultation, a couple of the things around Market Drayton Sports Association and the land near Victoria Wharf were included in that consultation, so we can fold that into the review. So really it's to say, whilst it's disappointing we can't take it to that stage now, I think we have got to follow the advice of the independent examiner, but we will do all we can to support what they're trying to achieve through the process. And should Market Drayton Town Council decide they want to address the concerns raised by the examiner, they can come back to us once they've done so and ask us to.
I was going to ask
continue the
that this
process.
isn't saying no, never. This is saying this it's not acceptable in its present form, but you've got the opportunity to go away and address some of the concerns and then possibly bring it back.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So with that, I move the recommendations.
Right. I'm happy to second. Any comments? No? All those in favour then, please show. Thank you. Right, moving on. War neighbourhood plan. Councillor Robert Macy again. So just get to the right picture, right number page.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, two at the one meeting. With this report, we're actually, in the case of War and the Neighbourhood Development Plan, it has been recommended that we proceed to a referendum to determine if the plan should be used for the purposes of deciding planning applications in the neighbourhood area. Again, this had a steering group. The Parish Council acted as the local qualifying body, and the work began in 2016. That came to us, the draft version came to us as a council in May 2018, and we undertook the consultation and appointed an independent person again to conduct the examination. The examiner recommended the plan could proceed to the local referendum, subject to a number of modifications being made, and it's now Shropshire Council's role to consider the outcome of the report, again proposed modifications this time, and agree if the plan should proceed to referendum. If Cabinet does agree, the referendum will be taken on a date between Thursday the 9th of May and Thursday the 13th of June. Should that gain public support, then the full council will be asked to formally make, another word for adopt, the War neighbourhood plan to form part of the statutory development plan for Shropshire. You'll see there's 4 separate recommendations within that, and that relates to modifications that have been requested, the definition of where we will hold the actual referendum itself, and that we have said would be the War parish boundary, because that's how the plan has been prepared, and we're delegating to the Executive Director of Place all the relevant powers to do so. I think with that, I think I will leave the recommendations.
Okay. If they time it right, they might be able to do it on the same day as the European elections. Right, I'm happy to second it. Any other comments? No? Right, all those in favour then, please show. Thank you very much. Item 12, Shropshire Local Plan Review, Strategic Development Sites. Councillor Robert Macy again.
Very planning related theme today. So the Shropshire Local Plan Review Strategic Development Sites is in front of you. This is another stage on our local plan review. The purpose of the report in front of you is seeking approval for officers to continue work with the site proposers and other stakeholders to develop positive proposals for development on strategic sites. You'll see from the paper that the 3 sites that we're referencing are the Ironbridge Power Station at Buildross, the Clive Barracks at Turnhill, and the land near Junction 3 of the M54. In relation to the Ironbridge Power Station, we're looking at mixed-use scheme. It's important that we reference the fact that it provides employment land and around 1,000 homes, along with the accompanying local services and facilities. Turnhill, obviously, currently we host within the area, within our county. Employment, that would include employment land and around 700 homes as part of the new settlement, again stressing the point of with the local services and facilities. And the land near Junction 3 of the M54, it was very well publicised about an original proposal which we received from the promoters, which was for a much greater scale than we're talking about now. And there's a potential for a planned settlement west of the A41, and the key part of this is to provide a strategic employment site for around 50 hectares, accompanied by around 3,000 homes and a local centre to provide services, facilities and infrastructure. So the key behind this is, as a council, we have an economic growth strategy. In that, we're identifying the fact that we needed a step change in Shropshire's economy, and I know the previous portfolio holder has referenced that at these cabinet meetings previously, and that was something that we are striving to achieve. It's not just about sort of creating jobs for jobs' sake, it's reducing levels of out-commuting. We can retain that employment skills locally and increase our productivity. It's about the quality of the jobs as well as the number of jobs that these sites could create. Just taking them in order, I'm going to look at the M54 Junction 3 first. Obviously, we're very lucky in that we have RAF Cosford in Shropshire. They have indicated that they value that as a site going forward. They're looking to intensify their activities on the site. And that's something that is likely to create opportunities in terms of other businesses being related to that. In terms of this, we are looking at if we can generate additional demand for employment through that intensification and other things. We look at this not competing with our neighbouring areas, which are positioned at other junctions, at Junction 2 and at Junction 4. We want this to be a complementary offering. From our point of view, we are bound by the local plan review to do a greenbelt review. So this is our one chance to look at this issue and to tackle it. What we are looking at in terms of the M54 is very much, from Shropshire's point of view, is around this is once in a generation for our employment needs. This for us as Shropshire, and going back to the point that was raised during the public questions, is what we want to address for existing Shropshire residents, is this access to increased employment, to the right sort of jobs, and actually it will mean that a large number of the population within Shropshire will have access to these jobs should this site come forward. It is very much, you've heard, and I want to make this point about confusing this about these sites contributing to our local plan. We have made quite clear that a couple of these sites are on brownfield sites, they sit within our borders and they will, yes, produce more housing, and that will be done on the basis of a master planned approach, which is very much something that our communities are asking for, is this master planned approach to address the issues around infrastructure. That is the approach we are taking. The M54 is on the back of unmet development needs in the Black Country, but there is an opportunity for us. So at this stage, this report is asking officers to go out and look at what is the opportunity for us in relation to this site and to come back with that information. It also enables people to go out and have those discussions, hopefully with other partners, to really have a clear picture of what we're talking about. So, in conclusion, these are important sites for our county. We need to get them right. We need to make sure the accompanying infrastructure is there, but they do present opportunities, and this is about officers exploring that further before coming back to us.
I think the thing to stress is this is a consultation situation. This isn't a decision making. It's taking it out to consultation, and then it will go to the place plans and the review of the local plan.
Well, we're even earlier than that. This is just saying we will go out and we will have the conversations to define exactly what it is we are talking about, exactly what is being brought forward. It will then come back and it would go out for consultation later in the year. This really gives everybody, but by bringing it here today, it gives everyone that opportunity to see this is what has been promoted. There are going to be conversations, and we will bring back to you what is it that we are actually talking about in some detail, and what is it with the opportunity to us before going out to consultation.
Okay. Roger Evans, next.
Thank you, Chairman. My basic concern is about the first sentence in recommendation B, and that's accepting overspill from the Black Country. We did that once before, many years ago, and it created quite a number of problems where people who were used to living in Birmingham came out to a rural area and created all sorts of problems, and it did get a bad reputation. It concerns me that we have accepted a higher number for housing growth in Shropshire for the 2016-2036. This number here, I assume, will increase that number, and how will it knit together in the year-on-year progress? Because previously, a few years ago, we were not able to meet the 5-year land supply, giving ourselves higher and higher targets. We are well above that at present, and congratulations to all those concerned who are doing it. But if we have higher targets from this in the future and we fail to reach it, are we likely to fall into the category again of not being able to satisfy the 5-year housing supply and have free access to many developers building in places we do not want them? So I would like to see, as part of the exploration, how this will affect our total numbers and aspirations in the future, because I don't think anybody would want to go down the avenue of not being able to meet this government target because of the effects it will have. So it's the numbers from the Black Country coming in who are not used to rural areas, and how that will be incorporated into our economic strategy, which I agree is important, but I want jobs for Shropshire residents, not jobs for Black Country residents. I'm being very parochial on that, and I want high-paid jobs for Shropshire residents, and I don't want others taking them. So I'm not sure that I can support the housing at present without further information being supplied, which may come forward in the future.
I may have got it wrong, but I read it the opposite to you. I think by doing this, we actually guarantee that we won't be struggling with 5-year land supply issues in the future. It's the opposite way round, I believe. But we'll get the officers to come back on that point somewhere along the line. Who was next on the list? Pauline.
Right, thank you, Leader. About the climate marriage turn here, I'm on the helicopter liaison group, Shropshire Council, and one of the concerns of the officers there was whether they were being consulted. I see it says MOD, but that could be the MOD up in London, and not taking into account, because the officers were adamant, and I don't know if you remember it, Roger, because you're on that group as well, aren't you, that they said they would still be using the site for their exercises.
I had a visit to RAF Shawbury 2 or 3 months ago, and I did talk to them about Turnhill, and I did stress that they needed to talk to our planning policy team, and I believe that has taken place. They have been talking to the planning policy team. What I can say,
listening?
Well, that's a different question.
Yeah.
But what I can say about Turnhill, and I think I distributed a letter, but we had a letter recently that the Ministry of Defence have now said that none of the land will be available prior to 2025.
Yes, as in here.
Yeah. So so we're talking, but because the plan covers the area the time till 2036, it will still fall within this plan, but it's not going to happen as quickly as was originally envisaged.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm not the Shawbury councillor, but I mean, it does concern me because they are such big employers, and so they're so valuable to the local economy.
Yeah. And the future of Shawbury is pretty well guaranteed now, because it's the helicopter training place for all the services for the whole of the British Isles. And I mean, they've invested absolute millions in some of the equipment there. So I think it's safe. And I think we all acknowledge that they want Turnhill rather than as a runway for planes to come in and out as helicopter training. But the conversation is taking place that you were worried about. Yeah. Councillor Kevin Turley next.
Can I come in quickly after that about the helicopter one, Chairman?
No, I don't.
There are officers here who came up last night about a planning application which had been considered and was taken out.
And that discussion is taking place all the time. Right. Councillor Kevin Turley.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry to say I can't support this going forward. Whilst it's not my patch, I have grave concerns about the great big swathes of green belt. I appreciate the economic strategy of Shropshire Council and where we need to be leading, but we need to be looking greater at our brownfield sites and not applying great amounts of pressure to our small communities. You talk about this going to be worked at more, drafted at more, consultation with communities and things like that. Well, Shifnal has been heavily involved with officers here of consultation and talking about land and areas of development, and the local members, the local town council, the community feel we've been ignored completely. Tongue Parish Council and the surrounding area feel they're not getting listened to now. This council is going to end up with legal challenges, barristers' fees, solicitors' fees. Shifnal Town Council are talking to solicitors. Shifnal Matters as a social media group are talking to barristers. Shropshire Council needs to communicate better with its communities. It's all well and good having a strategy, but if that strategy is going to cost this council money, isn't it better to go out, listen and talk, work things through? I mean, there are things we can do, but great big swathes of green belt being cut down for housing, great big swathes of green belt cut down for factories, bypasses and everything else. No, I'm sorry, I just can't be behind this and I can't support Shropshire Council with this.
I hear what you're saying, but there's also the other consideration is that if developers and people who own land put it forward, we are obliged to consider it. And so, and they again will be employing barristers, etc., to argue their case. So we're caught in the middle in a way.
I get that, and I get as a council we're going to have legal challenges from the other end of the scale. But yeah. From my perspective, I'm sorry, I can't support this.
Also, I'd say part of the problem in Shifnal was the lack of the 5-year land supply issue at one time, and that's what created the several hundred of the planning permissions, because we weren't in a position to object. And I believe by doing this, that will stop that happening in the future.
It was the first time round, yes, but what we're looking at consultation with Greenbelt Review going forward. I know that's not what's on the table at the moment, but it's in the same ilk. We're not sort of looking and listening and putting sensible planning in place.
Next on the list was Willem Butler.
Thank you, Leader. Just a couple of points I'd like to raise, and one is for officers really. Moving forward, if these sites do come forward for housing and development, I think that we definitely need to get community governance in place before they're actually developed. To give you an example of this, I attended the Muchway Wenlock first place plan meeting a couple of weeks ago, and Buildwas Parish Council, which serves approximately 200 residents at the moment, are shaking at the knees, because they could end up, they know something's going to happen with the power station site, they could end up with another 3,000 to 4,000 residents, which basically makes them the size of Clippery Mortimer. So they need to make sure, before we even start to get any houses built, if it goes forward, I'm only saying if, that we have the community governance in place. Otherwise, we're going to build somewhere that has no community sustainability or self-control. So I would urge officers, whatever recommendations they come forward with, that we have the whole structure of how that community is going to work for itself as part of the proposal. That's my first point. That's just a marker in the sand. The second point, I'd just like for clarification from the portfolio holder, is what he sees the role of the local communities and the town and neighbouring parishes in part of this process, which I see as being just past the start of the beginning of a review. So, Rob, grateful for an answer, thanks.
Do you want to respond to that now, and then we'll? I was going to say, do you want me to go through? There's a few.
Oh well,
points as well.
I know.
So
All right, we'll leave it
we'll
there.
go through.
Alan was next.
I'm satisfied that this work needs to be done to prevent the sort of developer-led monstrosities that might develop if the proper procedure is not. But could he just confirm that this is, as preliminary as he said, it's just talks about talks, and that the full reports will come later in due course. But I just want to take issue with Roger.
Use your microphone.
I just wanted to take issue with Roger. Somebody that originated in Stoke-on-Trent, which, although not part of the Black Country, could be seen as being urban, and it's not been a problem for me being here. But I also thought that the discussions at the moment about free movement of labour were about Europe and not trying to stop free movement of labour within Britain itself or within the Midlands itself.
I've got a couple of comments, and I'm going to ask Rob Macy a question in a minute. So I think Turnhill is not on the back burner exactly, but it will be delayed, and it will be a while before we need to make serious decisions there. I think Cosford is really positive. If we can help Cosford be taken out of the green belt, they really do want to expand the engineering works there, the training and apprenticeship schemes there, and it really will be a huge opportunity for people in that end of the county to really have higher employment opportunities than they have now. And I think Roger must have heard me doing my public speaking sometime, because one of the things I actually say, and it's important in Shropshire, we don't have an unemployment problem, we have a poor employment problem. Far too many people in Shropshire earn basic wages, and we need to up the skills level in Shropshire so that we get wages to be far higher, so that the standard of living of residents goes up, and that's one of the ways to, and that's part of what this is about. By having this M54 corridor or work along the M54, if we can get employment opportunities that are greater than that exist now, we really will be helping all the residents of Shropshire. There's a Jaguar Land Rover factory at the end of the M54. It needs a supply chain. We need to make sure in Shropshire that we're in a position to be able to provide the premises and the opportunities for that supply chain to take place. Because there might be a slight downturn in cars at the moment, but it'll come back. Cars have been around a long time, and they're not going to suddenly go away. They might have different ways, they might become electric or whatever, but they will always exist, and we do need to make sure we're giving all the support we can to that industry, because the Midlands have relied on it for a long time. What is interesting, one of the things we need to make sure we do as a council keep promoting, if you think about Turnhill, and you think about Tong, is making sure we keep pushing the needs of the A41, because that's a very busy road. It copes well with traffic at the moment, but it is busy. There's a lot of heavy traffic on there, and we do need to keep pursuing the highways agencies to make sure we get more money invested in the A41 across North Shropshire, because it is going to be a key road and will become even more so as time goes on. Ironbridge is interesting because the Howard Group, who bought the Ironbridge Power Station, are well organised, and they are starting to talk to council now about various aspects of that site. I think it's really exciting. It's going to be one of the major economic development opportunities across the whole of the West Midlands. This is going to be a plum site for the whole region, and will be almost of national significance. And we've got to make sure they do it right. But they were talking to us, they're very well organised. We have a lot of confidence in the way that the conversation is going so far, and I think it will be an exciting development, but it will take time. You know, I'd still like to see blaster baits come in and just put a bit of dynamite under those towers. That's not going to be allowed. They have got to come down virtually brick by brick, and it is going to take a year or two for those towers to come down. But it will be done properly, and the site will be cleared properly. There's huge amounts of pulverised ash, I think they call it, on site. You know, pulverised fuel ash, I'm told it is. And I mean, there's a huge amount there that has got to be taken off site. There are all sorts of exciting opportunities that could result from Ironbridge, and let's help, and we're trying to help them. I'm sure before long, well, the conversation almost has started, they're going to say to us, can you help us go to government or LEP or wherever to get funding for various aspects of the site? And I think we will be prepared to do all that. I think, you know, the site has got to be cleaned up. I mean, it's been a huge site for a long time. The only thing that is not going to happen at the moment is the building in the middle of the site, called the switchgear site, I think, has got to stay, and that's a huge building. But Adrian's in the back. Is there any opportunity in the future, do you think, for it to go?
As I understand it, it's an integral part of the national grid, so no is the quick answer.
Yeah, well, it is that, yeah. If you get rid of that building, Wales doesn't get any electric. But so I think that, but it's a huge site, it's a huge development, and it's going to be really exciting, and you know, I think we should be proud of what we're likely to achieve there. But generally, I think this report, it's the start of the conversation about these big sites. Albeit, I think Ironbridge is further down the road than the others. But we mustn't be frightened of taking on big sites and taking on the challenges that will come with big sites, because that's what it's about. Right. Anybody else? Oh, Rob Rob wants to come back. Yes, you've got your list.
No, I've got a list of questions that were raised. I'll try and go through in order with Roger. In terms of your comments about targets, obviously the local plan review is targeting 28,750 properties through to 2036. The two of the sites we talked about, all the sites we're talking about today, do not contribute to that total at the moment. That 28,750 has been identified through the other parts of the process which we're doing with the plan. In essence, that's related to your second question about the 5-year land supply and how do we maintain that, because none of us want to go to the position where we don't have a 5-year land supply in place, and obviously the last 2 years we have seen record levels of delivery, but we have to take the long-term view over the life of the plan with this through until 2036. So with these sites, as you've heard, there's plenty of challenges around Ironbridge and then so on, and the work that's got to be done there, so we don't want to be reliant and beholden to them, that if these sites don't come forward, that leaves the plan. So from that point of view, these would be positioned to help deliver that plan, and should any not come forward, these would help in that regard. In terms of your jobs for Shropshire residents, obviously on this stage of things, it is our role to be tough negotiators on that front. We obviously, as Alan picked up, we can't make any guarantees about moving within the area, but that is very much the focus we have, is on what is best for our residents and what sort of jobs can we create and so on that they have access to. So yes, very much that is in the forefront of our minds when we speak with others. Pauline, in terms of the Shawbury and so on, I think the leaders covered most of that pretty carefully. Obviously there is a task and finish group chaired by the MP, which a number of officers and others sit on, that discuss this on a regular basis. So yes, we are mindful of that, but we have got a good dialogue going on with the armed forces about this. And the leader's quite correct that now, yes, I think around 2025 for when that site might come forward, but that would still be well within the plan period we're talking about. Just taking Councillor Turley's points, obviously you referenced looking at brownfield sites. Ironbridge and Turnhill obviously are brownfield sites in that regard, that they've already got development and so on. And that is something we're keen to look at. They come with their own challenges as that, but that is something we are considering. In regards to his comments about infrastructure and the pressure that Shifnal has felt, yes, that's partly because of the 5-year land supply, and very much, as I've stressed, with the opportunity of the size of these sites and the opportunity to plan ahead, we would be very much looking at a master planning approach to these to make sure the infrastructure and facilities are in place. Each will have their own unique challenges around that. I know there have been some conversations going on, and I know a number of these communities have already made clear some of the very basics they'd be looking for in terms of Ironbridge and others, and we're listening to that. So we want to take that on board. The need to communicate. I'm hoping that this is an effort today in bringing this report to Cabinet at this early stage, is very much to say that, to keep people informed. This is where we're at, this is what we've received, we are going to have conversations and so on, and it's that early dialogue that we hope will inform this going forward into bringing a positive outcome on these. Obviously in terms of final decisions, that comes later down the road, but this is an early stage conversation. I was going to Councillor Butler's point about community governance and so on. Yes, that challenge was to officers, and I'm sure they've taken note of that and will be mindful of that going forward. In terms of the local community involvement, obviously there are parish councils as the elected bodies for those areas and so on. Those are something we are looking to engage with, and indeed in some cases we already have. They're in the midst of doing their place plans. Obviously, we knew that it's been quite clear in the local development plan that the strategic sites were coming forward, so that's already been factored into some of those place plan discussions, so that we have a joined up approach to this. So that will be an ongoing dialogue on that front. Obviously, when it gets to the actual formal consultation stage, again, they'll have that opportunity as well to feed into that. In terms of, Alan, you raised about, are we really at an early stage with this? Yes, we've got the proposals, we're going to work these up. They will come back for consultation later in the year. I think originally we planned that around sort of May, June sort of time. That's when the formal consultation on these would take place, once we're clear on what's being proposed. And again, that won't be the final part of the consultation. At the end, towards the end of the year, on the current timetable, they will have an opportunity to comment again on the whole review plan going forward. So there is multiple opportunities to get involved. And then I think the final point is about infrastructure. As I say, as we stressed, with each of the sites, that is something that we are very mindful about, how these communities are going to be planned, how they're going to work, what we need to support those. And that some of that will be pretty large infrastructure requirements that we're looking for, and we will be seeking assurances about how those will be delivered and by whom as well.
Can I just ask one final question? Do you regard this as the end of the proposal for 10,000 houses at Tom, that it will be a reduced scheme that we're talking about, and the 10,000 houses is probably dead in the water?
Yeah, I can certainly give that assurance. You'll see from the report that the original proposal was 10,000 homes. That's not something we could support. We didn't feel was suitable and so on. What we're looking at now is very much in terms of a much smaller scheme, looking in terms of employment with some housing to support that. So yes.
Right. Now, the report's here. The recommendations are on page 429. Any further comment? There doesn't seem to be, so can I see those in favour of the recommendations, please? Okay, thank you very much. Right, we move on. Now, we need to exclude the press and the public because we do need to talk about something to do with finance that's confidential. So can I move to exclude the public